I am extremely pleased to be here. My son graduated from A&M 2 years ago. Like his dad, he graduated with a magna cum laude. The difference between the two of us, he earned his and I sat next to one. So I'm here to talk to you about the connection study. And if you will, just a brief word of warning. We've had this whole presentation reviewed by everyone. And some of the things that we were going to say, we're not going to say because, as Carlos mentioned, we're early in the study. In fact, we're talking about 5 dimensions. As planners and engineers, we're fully aware of several of those dimensions. Obviously, capacity and demand is very important. We understand that. We also understand that funding is the only way that we're going to make improvements, and that has a huge effect on time. Now, some of the things that progressive engineers and planners are incorporating into the studies now is stakeholder involvement. And we are a partnership. I'm with a consultant that is working for TxDOT. TxDOT is working with the Alamo area MPO and the Capital Area MPO, or CAMPO, if you're familiar with that. And we are going to be going to them, to their full policy boards in the next month to review our preliminary findings. And as a result, some of the things that normally would be said during the course of events like this are going to be held back until we've reviewed them with those policy boards. And then we'll go out from there to various stakeholders throughout the 100 and some odd mile corridor. Now, there's another dimension that in the last 5 years has truly emerged in the transportation arena, and that is technology. If you have read the news, obviously Uber and Lyft have had a dramatic impact. There are these micro transit systems that are emerging. There's, on the other end of the spectrum, Mr. Elon Musk, who's doing things that I would never even have dreamed of. And so all of those are part of this process because we're looking to the year 2040 and beyond. So we have, previous studies in this corridor have focused on a single technology, a single corridor. We are moving from that 3,000-foot view to a 30,000-foot view. And instead of incorporating one corridor, we're incorporating 12 counties. All of the counties that make up the 2 MPOs, plus a couple of other counties who happen to carry key parts of various corridors. If any of you have ever driven between San Antonio and Austin, I'm sorry. You probably drove on I-35. And the alternatives for regional travel are you can take the toll road, SH-130, that Doug briefly mentioned, or you can take US 281. Neither one of them seem to be as popular with people. And so we are looking at a broader corridor to understand the existing market, the existing issues, and what opportunities there are. Obviously, when we talk about the Alamo Capital Connection Study, we're considering going all the way from the south side of San Antonio up through Austin to Georgetown, where 130 connects back into I-35. And obviously, I don't really need to talk to transportation professionals about this, but there are very few direct connectors. There's I-35 and sort of SH-130, and then there's US 281 if you want to go out and see the wildflowers. And if you stay on 35, you have a relatively unreliable travel. You might get there in an hour, more likely 2, sometimes 4. There's obviously, in the midst of this transportation deficiency, there's a lot of accelerated growth going on along I-35, which of course then makes the transportation problems more pronounced. And finally, there's a whole need for a multi-regional address of these issues. In other words, we can't be just one tribe or one clan, whether it's TxDOT Austin or TxDOT San Antonio or the MPO or all the communities along the corridor. Each clan cannot stand up against this challenge by themselves. But the hope is that we'll be able to develop a regional strategy that addresses things in a holistic manner and gets the job done. So let's take a minute. Let's think about Dallas-Fort Worth. Today, about 6.3 million people live in Dallas-Fort Worth. And you say, that is a big city. It's almost as big as Houston. Whereas San Antonio and Austin are, yeah, they're big cities, but they're not that big. But here's the thing. You think about everything that's going on in Dallas-Fort Worth today. Circumferential highways, radial highways, they even have transit systems. They even have rail transit systems. Some of that through great planning and some of that through the fortune of having an abandoned rail corridor or something that they could generate. But if you take San Antonio and Austin and look at the year 2040, they're going to have almost as many people as Dallas-Fort Worth has today. Do you see a problem? Well, today, like we said, there are two fairly large metropolitan areas that are separated by about 80 miles. But watch what happens during the course of growth. And all of a sudden, you're looking at the next Dallas-Fort Worth. All of a sudden, you have a great deal more development. And it's interesting, as I mentioned, most of that development is focused on I-35. Even though it's not much fun to drive on I-35, that's where everybody is building. There are some advantages to that, of course. If you look at what Clark University has done with the national database that they've developed, we're going to increase developed land by 41% in the study area. But we're only going to take away about 9% of undeveloped lands and only about 6% of croplands. So what you can see is if you can focus in on an existing corridor, you can minimize your negative impacts. And here are some other negative impacts that some people who like to file lawsuits don't want to talk about, but traveling in this corridor today is not very pleasant. The two MPOs have done a series of studies. This is from the Alamo MPO, and this is based on the INREX data and the HERE data, which comes from your personal telephones, your cell phones. Thank you very much for being part of this massive data collection process. And as you can see, particularly up in, if this is Austin and this is San Antonio, and these are all the interchanges in between, you can see in Austin during most of the day, morning and afternoon, you have very undesirable conditions. But those conditions are starting to emerge down in San Antonio as well. Now, CAMPO and AMPO have both done studies to determine what the congestion levels are, and this is congestion density. And there is the similar one for Austin. And in 2040, even when we add in all the improvements, and the Austin district, don't know if Kevin Dickey's here or not, but the Austin district is going to spend $3 billion on improving I-35 without making it look like a miracle. Down in the San Antonio district, they're going to spend more than $1 billion on improvements to 35, as well as improvements to US 281, which is emerging as a major corridor. But even with all of that, we haven't solved the problem. We're actually a little bit worse than we are today in 2040 with $4+ billion spent, which is why this partnership is so critical, why it is so important that we stand up together to face the foe of congestion. So all of these groups are going to be working together. The hope is that we will develop not only solutions that can be implemented, but we'll find ways that we can actually make them happen from policy, technology, and funding perspectives. And that's where we are in the study. Carlos will be chairing a meeting next month, and we're looking forward to it. Roger Bell has also been active. I saw him earlier. I don't know if he's still here, but we're enjoying this study. It's an opportunity to do something new, and thank you very much.